Okay. Hey, uh, I've noticed that there aren't too many people doing a lot with the terrain system in the JWE3. Uh, yeah, there's some people who are doing a lot more interesting things than others, and usually like anything that's not flat doesn't work really well with like some of the buildings and some of the dinosaur like territories get lost, but I've learned to really create kind of like these unique shapes and more like natural looking, although that's not too natural looking. I have to smooth that over. Um, Shapes in the terrain that look more like they are actual like ridges and mountains and whatnot and actual geography. Um, and it's not too difficult. Um, you just have to think a little bit about what you're going for and then just kind of build around that. If you notice here, I have these little ledges. Like typically you see rivers cut through mountains like that, and they slowly like pull back and dig deeper and whatnot. And so they pull away, and so you see these like remnants. Uh, I don't think they're super consistent all the way through because you'll get these breaks or like more like snow and or melt will come down the mountain, so you'll get some erosion. I don't think it'd be as harsh as this here, but I like the way this looked. Anyways, or regardless, it's not too difficult to start getting shapes like this, and even if you're not gonna get like all your mountains and hills to look as close to this or as close to the ones we have in the background, like as realistic as we can imagine, you can still do stuff that looks relatively interesting and cool, like these other ones. These are like fairly unrefined. I haven't touched them. I just used a very simple method that I like applied over here through most of these. Um, these are just way more refined. Have like a little bit more work done to them. Uh, like I don't know if I especially love how bumpy this is. I might smooth it out a little bit more, but I can always come back to that. But this is like my most developed region of this like terraforming. But you can do a lot. The only issue is with this technique, you'll get these weird patterns if you don't like refine it, and it does look a little odd. But for a lot of these background objects, you may not need to go super realistic because if we're looking from down here, they just look like kind of your normal mountains. You could maybe smooth them over a little bit more, but it looks fine. And for most of these will look fine. Some of them will look a little bit more weird. Like if we look here, this might look fine during normal gameplay, especially if you like plop down a bunch of trees and other stuff around this terrain. It's gonna be harder to notice all these like weird circular for patterns and formations in these cutouts. But those circular cutouts actually help you out a lot in making these like ridge lines and all these like pointy shapes and whatnot. Um, but anyways, let's go ahead and build a new one over here. Actually, don't quite like how this looks, so I might start over with this one. Cause or no, I can just build one over here. Okay. So to build more dynamic terrain, you just wanna pile up your peak as high as you probably want it. We'll say that's good. It's a little higher than I really need, but. And then from this point on, all you really want to do is you want to flatten out like your peak. You might want to like pull this back down. You just want to build the body up of the mountain that you're building. And this might look really dumb, like you're just using the flatten tool. Like, how is this gonna get you anywhere to like building a mountain that actually looks good or anything like that? But it's weirdly effective. And I'll show you how. But okay, so this is a pretty standard-ish little mountain thing. If you just wanted to like do a vertical one, I guess this would be like kind of good enough. This will get you something kind of like this, depending on what you're doing. This used to all be like a big pile, not exactly as like a simple rounded shape as this, but yeah. I like to follow like kind of the guide of how the land is going. If you notice, is like an oblong shape. So I'm just gonna pull this out a little bit more. Actually, let me pull the intensity all the way up because it'll help me do this a little quicker. And then let's like level this down a little bit more, like this. We'll pull this. Oh, we'll pull this out this way a little bit, just like that. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side, but not as. Okay. And so this like looks a little goofy already, but I mean, working with this, even if you just state it or lift it like this and maybe edit it a little bit more with raising some terrain and specific areas and whatnot, and making like ramps so your dinosaurs and or paths can go up and down. This would be very easy. I've seen some creators on YouTube do stuff like this and then put a bunch of rocks all over it. And it looks fairly natural. It's just a little bit weird because you have these like very wide, flat areas that are very unnatural. But this is more useful to you for park building and some habitat building than something like this, just because if the terrain gets too rough, the dinosaurs can't really use it all effectively. Sometimes they get stuck and they lose their comfort stat. But anyways, this is all we really need. And so we're going to bump the radius up on this. I think the slope can stay where it is. I might bring it down a little bit more. And so all we really want to do is bring the intensity down. And you want to grab your lowest point of the map to bring these down and carve out a mountain. So looking at this mountain here, we're going to probably want to lower this whole edge. And don't worry about all that like grid mapping that's going on right now. Just kind of you want to bring this down. There might be like a little bit of a ridge texture here. I'll bring the intensity down a little bit. Maybe bring the slope up because the slope is usually what causes these, because it's you're telling the game you don't want a crazy slope, and so it's trying to build these flat levels with a tiny bit of variance of like it gets a little steeper and then flattens out more so that it doesn't look too steep, because that's kind of what you're asking of the game. But anyways, you can just keep going, and we're gonna flatten this out a little bit more here. The intensity is a little too low. That's a little too high. And like we're building kind of like a ridge line here. I want to bring it down, bring this whole side of it down a lot more. Now, if you're noticing, this is already looking a lot more natural, way more dynamic. We can bring this ridge down a little bit more. Yeah. Let's cut that away. And this is where that weird like circular pattern comes from when you're using this kind of technique, because you're using the round brush, and obviously it's not going to lower all the areas next to it. But it's not really a big deal, and I'll show you how to kind of get rid of it if you want to put in a little bit more work. And all we're really doing is like using the slow application of this brush to our advantage to create a gradual decline in the steepness of this mountain. And you can shrink your brush to get more precise on this effect. Like if you want to bring more of this top of the mountain down. And so that looks pretty decent already. I don't know if I necessarily love all the shapes that we're seeing. And like from the map, you can see all the patterning in like the more bald areas without any of the rocks. But it should be all over this thing. I am pretty sure. Yeah, you can see some of it here. Yep, right here. And so it is pretty easy to hide depending on what you're using. Because if we just put some rocks down, oh, it's all gone. Just like that. It's all gone. But in my opinion, you don't always want to get rid of these ridges. Because they are what help you shape your mountain out. So this looks like a pretty decent shape here, but if we're gonna keep this base down here, if you're trying to what is it? Like nail this a little bit more natural, like give it a more natural look. You want to come in with like a fine tooth, get like a small raised brush and just like connect these two ridge lines. And it looks a little weird right now, but all you have to do, oh, that's too much intensity on that. You have to lightly tap like the smooth tool. And you don't really need that much use out of that because once you have the ridge formed, kind of like this is going on, you can use a bigger radius and you lift it up in a more like convincing way. But I don't like how this shape is coming along, so we're actually going to edit this into a different shape and a different ridge line. So mountains tend not to do these crazy turns and whatnot. You know, you can get it sometimes in some formations and you'll see different like unique formations, but they typically are very organic in the progression of like the shapes you see in a mountain. And so getting rid of that curve is already making it more natural, but we're going to keep going because we need to level this out. This is a little bit too strong here, actually. So you want to cut away from this and then turn this into like a little sub-ridge, like a little toe off the like foot of this mountain here. And then I'm just going to apply a soft and there you go. It's looking pretty natural. Oh, hold on. Sandbox settings. Yes, please. It's looking way more natural here. Like considerably more natural to everything else that we got going on in this thing. But don't be afraid of these little shapes like these down here, because it can give you these unique geographic like features. Like I like the way this looks. I might like not have this be so level and have this like at an angle up top, but I think it looks good. And I like this little one over here. Oh, it just needs to smooth out a little bit. Hopefully this doesn't destroy like all of its character. It might not want to level out. And And this is where we're getting like close to some of the limits of the terrain system in this game. Because it like progresses in the way that it does, you'll start to get these little bumps around like a spine almost on some of these ridge lines. But I think it's fine. From farther away, it's harder to notice. But back to our little mountain over here, which I might keep depending. I kind of wanted this as a forest, but yeah, I might get rid of this after because of the forest side. I might bring it down lower, kind of like this area over here. This is like the foothills of this mountain. But anyways, let's go back over here. That's kind of it. It's pretty simple on that. And you kind of just want to look for the patterns, or not, to get rid of them. Like you can see the circle pattern here. You just want to tap your smooth tool, and it's basically gone already. You might think that you kind of want to go through the smooth tool and just like go like this, but overusing the smooth tool will make it be very blobby. And I mean, it's not bad. Like this is a very weathered look. The cliff edges are like very rounded, but it just doesn't look as natural as these like more angled slopes and ridges, very visible ridges, and they add more character. Let's see here. What else can we do for this? I think it'd be worth adding a small. You kind of just have to recognize where your mountain is going. Let's bring up the intensity a little bit more. So this is a little bit of like a unneeded feature that I'm adding to this. See, it looks very odd. Even this ridge looks a little bit odd, but if you smooth it down, it'll look better. Especially given this feature. I think I've added kind of like a corner here. So we kind of do have to do something with this, but we don't want it to be as angled as that. Maybe smooth it closer down to the bottom. Like there might have been like a ridge here, a little hill, but it's been weathered down by water coming down this way from the rains. And yeah, that's adding more character to this peak up here. I like the way this looks too down here. But we probably want to lower this down. And we'll smooth this out. See, this already is looking really good. It should be a really good backdrop for a park if I had more space here. In your enclosures, it is a little big, but it's not too big, especially like on the square maps compared to like everything else that I got going on over here. But and so now we're reaching like a decision point, because our mountain is looking like it's like the low end is down here and it's like jutting out to the left. So you could lean into that, and it would look relatively good, but you could also go make it more symmetrical, have like a fairly similar ridge line on the other side, and that looks fine too. But I like mountains to be a little bit more asymmetrical and have a little bit more character, especially because it has such a steep drop off here, and I kind of like the way that looks. So a good alternative to making like another ridge line, but keeping like a bit of a symmetry and like space that this is taking up on both sides, is you can just eat away here and make like a sub peak that like mirrors this bigger one. And we're gonna add another little peak down here as well. Make this into like a ridge line here. Okay. And some of these is like a little bit too gouged out, but okay. I'm gonna lower this down a little bit more. It's looking almost quite there. Actually not gonna have it follow the shape of the other one. There we go. So now we got a pretty decent front face to this mountain. Maybe we can flatten this out a little bit more. No, not like that. Kind of like this. Since this peak is like somewhat flattened. I think that looks good. At this point, you're pretty much done with like the mountaining part. This part is a little bit weird, but that's also because I haven't gone forth and like connected these two peaks. I still need a ridge like connecting both of them together. So we want to do a little bit of this. And then we want to smooth it out. Actually, so I did this a little bit wrong. So what you might want to do is grab a small flatten, bring this down, and then go the other way. That looks cool. And you know, you don't have to go for perfect when you're doing this kind of stuff. Go with what you want to see, what you think fits best in your enclosures, behind your enclosures, for your enclosures. When it comes to texturing your mountains, though, you definitely want to use your like grass brush towards the bottom, kind of trying to get it to look like that. Yeah, this is a much better set of the brush. You always want to use cliff for making it look like the rocky surface. We can leave small patches up here. This might be too high up, but I think it looks fine. Another technique you can use, especially to like blend these into flatter terrain, is use the smooth bottom, because what that does is it like pulls out your vertical terrain into a flatter angle with your base or with the ground. So you see that there's a more gradual up. This will, or yeah, more gradual like incline into the mountain. And just hope you maintain some of your ridge lines, but also smooth out to the bottom. Um, so it doesn't look like super aggressive or anything like that. And I believe it'll also help with any foliage you're trying to put down. I guess not. Okay, I really hate that. I don't love what Frontier has done with like the trees and like how they interact with terrain. Um, like the rocks are fine. It's just there's it happens way too early, and there's like it's way too dense sometimes. I guess if I turn down the intensity. But rocks are useful. You typically want your rocks near the bottom. They're like anything that's fallen off. You might want them in like these pits up here. Sometimes you want them on the side, like they're hanging off. In these like valleys, you definitely want some. I don't know if I love that big rock. It looks cool, but it just doesn't. I like where would it have come from? And so it's getting more character, you see, and it's kind of like the really like the it for like the mountain making process. You just want to build your mound and then cut it into the mountain that it's supposed to be. You don't typically want to put rocks on your ridge. It kind of like robs it a little bit of its presence and it looks a little bit weird. You can put a few, but like that rock would almost certainly never be there. Oh, like these are even like this is a lot that I am not down for. So I just want to like thin it out, come back in, add a few more. But you can mess with these like if this is like a bit of a small mountain, but I mean if this was lower, you could put trees up here. Oh, I might not be able to. It's too steep. Yeah, it's too steep. Thanks, Frontier. But yeah, you can put some rocks up here. That's kind of it. Like this is a pretty simple mountain process. Be as creative with it as you want. Again, you don't have to go into the finer details or at all or anything. You can experiment too, like these like weird undulating hills like embedded into this mountain. All this is that these were different flattened levels, going all the way to the top, and I started like building out where the ridges were gonna be with the raised terrain tool, kind of like this. But if you are doing that on like stair step flattened mound, you're gonna get these weird like cliffs that look like waves going around because it's raising the edge at different rates. But it's super easy to fix. All you really want to do is like come in with like a smaller raise terrain, and you kind of just connect these. You hit it with like the smooth, and it just goes away. It goes away pretty quickly, pretty instantly. I also haven't cut these yet with the flatten tool like I did on this other side. All this was already most of it towards the bottom has been cut. Um, with the flatten tool to get these like interesting shapes and carve outs. Um, and you know the terrain will never be perfect, but I mean in nature it never is. It's just about it being scenic. You can also come back and fix any mistakes. Thanks, Rain. But these mountains used to go all the way down to the water line, or not to the water line, but down to this lowest level of terrain. But as you see, it looks like they're on a flat level that's higher than that, and that's because it's super easy to come back with like a large radius, low intensity like raise tool, and you can lift the whole thing without compromising its shape. Like it still looks fine, exactly as it was before. And if you want to hit it with like the smooth tool to like get it a little bit more, you know, down level, and especially these low areas, to what it should be looking like, it's pretty easy. But let's go ahead and do a quick. Well, let me change the weather real quick. See if I can do that. Is it over here? Yeah. Yeah, calm events only. Hopefully this goes away. But all these haven't really been worked on as much as this side. And I guess I only really have maybe like a quarter of this park done, and like the terrainscaping. I mean, I might come back and work on some of this, but it looks pretty. Like this looks fine enough for me. Like I would enjoy seeing the dinosaurs coming to this valley. Maybe it's a little too flat. I don't like love that. But but as you saw, like adding any more of a slope to any of this terrain gets rid of like your ability to have any trees, any cover. Oh man, that's beautiful. There's some weird texturing here. And see, that got rid of the ridge line instantly. But that's why we got the undo tool. Perfect. These are actually super easy to make. These like these old river banks, all these old declines. All you really want to do is use your flatten tool on like a bit of a raised edge. And you come in like at the bottom as well. Oh, it's weird. Come at the bottom. Oh, it's a smooth tool. Just want to come at the bottom, cut out like the bottom level. And you don't really have to, like the slope doesn't really matter, because at this point all you do is use the smooth from bottom and you get that effect. The like bowl effect. Although it's a little bit too much. Actually, I think it's fine. Let's get a smaller brush. When it comes to rivers as well, if your river gets really narrow, it's gonna be, depending on the situation, it's gonna be deeper. So you might want to use your deep water there. This river looks a little weird because I was just using the different tools for different purposes. Um, but I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, especially because you want your dinosaurs to have crossing points in the river, your vehicles have crossing points in the river. I've also seen that you can build waterfalls so that your tours can drive across rivers. Since it doesn't count as water, the actual waterfall, if you make a long one. However, my river's completely flat, so I can't really make a waterfall that way. Hyperloops, I guess, are your best friend in this case, because I won't be able to have any like observation posts deep in here with paths, because you can't build paths across the water because there's no functional bridges in this game. Um, Hopefully that comes out one day. But I really like this game. I'm really having fun with the terrain tools. Um, I wanted to show off a little bit of like what I've done. I might upload more videos in the future for specific terrain types that anybody's looking for on how best to make it, any like best practices on how to quickly do any terraforming or any kind of look that you're going for in your parks. I don't know if I'll upload just like any terrain building for my own personal parks or anything like that for like a video, but I just wanted to upload this and show people a little bit of my process and make it the terrain tool more understandable for everyone in the community. But you know, everybody have fun, build beautiful parks, and take care of your dinosaurs. Do not let harm come onto the baby dinosaurs.